Hello again, everyone. This time around we're going to be troubleshooting and eventually replacing the screen in this DV4 HP DV4 1155 SE laptop. Now that SE stands for Special Edition, and it's going to pose major problems with replacing this screen on this laptop, as I'll show you later on in this video. Now, as you can see here, this screen lights up, but the screen is just blank. Just a milky white screen is all we have here. So first thing we're going to have to do is diagnose the problem with this. We're going to have to gain access to the back of the screen cable, and the inverter to further troubleshoot this issue. So what I'm going to do is use a little hot air, and I'm going to use this hot air to heat up two tabs that are stuck on by glue that cover two screws to remove the back panel of this laptop. Yes, I said back panel. We have to open the back of this panel up, not the front bezel, to access this screen. So there are my two tabs here. We're going to heat them up a little bit, not so hot that it melts the plastic. So notice how I kind of check to make sure we're not too hot with the back of my hand. But we're just going to slowly peel away these two tabs to expose the two screws that's under them. So the deal with this HP DV4 SE Special Edition is that they have put Gorilla Glass over the very front of this, on top of the screen. It goes from one end of the bezel to the other. There is no front bezel. It is actually one piece of Gorilla Glass that covers the front screen. I had originally thought it was a touchscreen laptop, but it's not. It's just quote unquote Special Edition, and I don't know what really is so special about it. Really pain to change the screen on one of these. I really wouldn't recommend doing it. It's not meant to be changed, honestly, and you'll see why here in a minute. So we'll go ahead and just remove these two screws, and this is, looks like a normal operation on most laptops when removing a screen, but this is where things get a little different. We now have to access the screen from the back side. So we're going to have to pop off the back bezel of this laptop. So we'll just go ahead here and just gently pry apart the shell, and being careful not to damage anything in the process. You will see some tabs breaking off of this as you go. That's just going to happen. Like I say, this screen was not meant to be replaced on these SE model laptops. Now the service manual of this laptop says to gently slide this back panel down and away. Good luck with that. I didn't have much luck with it. I just had to kind of pry it off. So be really careful when you're opening up this back panel, because there's a small wire that'll be waiting for you. This little cable just runs to the HP logo that lights up the very top of the top of the laptop there. So be careful of that. Next, we'll just kind of have a look here and try to dislodge this cable a little bit better, just so we don't damage it any. Okay, next we'll be peeling back all this foil from the back of the screen and kind of getting it out of our way. Why they need to put all this foil on the back side of this screen, I have no idea. Now keep in mind, this is a normal 14.1 inch screen. This has a matte finish on it. You can replace it with any normal 14.1 inch screen that's compatible with this laptop, but the SE model has a little catch here, which we're getting to in a minute. We're going to gently pry away the sticky tape that's on this foil here. Be careful not to pull in any cables or wires. Okay, since I have the data cable exposed, I want to test this to make sure that the data cable isn't the problem here. So I'm going to power up this laptop real quick at this point. And what I basically want to do is I want to kind of move that back cable around, moving it, squeezing it, moving it back and forth to see if I can get the display here to change any. And as you can see here, I'm just kind of squeezing it, moving it around, moving it about to see if I can get the picture to change any at all. And it does not change, so we know it's not the data cable that's the issue, at least at this point. And we also know that it's not the inverter, because the inverter lights up this screen. So what we really need to do basically is test with another known screen, and that's what we're going to try to do here. So we're going to go ahead and remove the camera and microphone carefully, removing the two screws that secure it in place. Once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and very carefully remove the tape that's holding the data cable in place. This is always a part of the job you want to be very careful with. That data cable is somewhat delicate, especially when you're pulling this tape off. If you get a little careless with it, it could pose a problem. So there we go, we'll just pull that off, set that back out of the way. Now we're going to bring in the known good screen, and basically we're just checking to make sure that this screen gives us a clear picture. It doesn't necessarily have to light up. I'm not going to connect the inverter to it. I just want to check to see if we can read text on it. I'm going to try to get into the BIOS here and see if we can see text on the screen, just to triple check to make darn sure that it is not our cable that's the problem. So we'll gently plug up our data cable here, and once it's plugged up, we're going to gently lay this screen back, paying attention that we're not stretching or pulling any more cables. And then we're going to go ahead and power it up and see if we get any results. Now I have also hooked up an external monitor here just so we know, make sure our GPU is okay. So we're going to power this up now. I know my screen's not going to light up because I don't have the inverter plugged in, but I do, however, have an external monitor that is showing the BIOS, so we know the GPU is good now. So now we're going to look for faint text on our known good screen here. Remember, our old screen was just plain white, no text. Now we have text. We see a faint image on our known good screen. Now we can confirm that yes, the original screen in this laptop is bad. Replacing the screen with a good screen is the correct fix for this project. So now we know we can go ahead with the removal of this screen here. So the first thing we need to do is loosen up the screen brackets that are on both sides of the screen. Now there are 4 screws that hold this bracket in place, shown here. There's 4 of them running down this side of the bracket. There's small screws that you'll see, and there's another 4 of them running down on this side of the bracket. So once we remove those, the bracket comes free. Now you're going to have to kind of move those antenna wires out of the way to get to those 4 screws there, but that's really not a big problem. Now basically, once I get these screws removed here, and I'm going to be removing the antenna wires there to kind of gain access to the screen, we're going to be faced with the issue of separating this screen from the Gorilla Glass. And let me tell you, this is no easy task. I will say it again. This screen, in my opinion, was not meant to be replaced on these SE series laptops. I really can't understand HP's thought on making a SE series for these DV4 models. The glass on the front of the screen makes no sense to me. It doesn't add any resolution or it doesn't add any beauty to the laptop. And there is some special designs on the palm rest. It's supposed to be hand painted. I don't know, something like that they say. But other than that, I really don't know why they came out with the SE series. But yeah, once we get these 4 screws out, I'm going to move along and show you how to get to the inverter. Now, usually the inverter is gained from the front, but on this laptop, the inverter is gained, you guessed it, from the rear. We got 4 screws we have to remove the inverter cover. Taking these 4 screws out will expose our inverter. Now, in traditional laptop screen replacement jobs, the inverter is almost always accessed from the front. The inverter cover is usually accessed and taken off from the front. But in this model, it all comes out through the back. Keep in mind when removing this inverter cover that little small ribbon cable is attached to your inverter. We don't want to damage that. So we'll kick this last screw out here. Then you want to kind of pull away on it and double check it to be sure that you're not going to be pulling any cables out or away or damaging anything. And the inverter cover just pretty much comes off relatively easily once you have the screws taken out. So we'll just go ahead and nice and easily pop off this inverter cover, exposing the inverter. From that point, the inverter cover can just slide right out, and then we can also identify where our screen now is plugged in at. It's plugged in with a white and pink wire that is right up here. So we'll be disconnecting that and taking out this screen here. Traditionally, you would think that the inverter cover would be coming off here in the front like you see, but don't let that fool you. Everything's from the back, as I said before, so we'll just get our inverter cover out of the way, and we'll move on to getting our antenna cables out of the way. And now we're going to work on trying to separate the screen from the bezel, the screen from the Gorilla Glass. Now, HP has gone out of their way to secure this screen to the glass. So our best bet is to lay it down flat as you see here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use not one tool, I'm going to use several tools to try to kind of pry my way around this, wedging my tool, which in this case is a spooge, a plastic spooge, in between the screen and the Gorilla Glass. Now, doing this, I'm also going to be using some hot air to try to see if I can loosen up some of this glue. I call this glue, but really a more accurate word for it would be cement. Glue is too nice of a word. I had one of the hardest times trying to remove this screen, separate it from the glass. Now, I don't have to worry about damaging the screen. The screen is already, gone. We know this. What I'm worried about is bending or scratching up even more the front glass. And I call it glass. It's actually plastic. That because we have to put another screen back in its place. So here you see I have 2 spooges stuck in here. I'm using my hot air. I'm going around trying to loosen up this compound that they've used to permanently seal this screen to this plastic. It literally took me probably an hour and a half to get this screen separated here. With I didn't want to tear up the front the front glass, so I had to do it right. I had to take my time. I'll say it again. This screen absolutely was not meant to be replaced on these SE models. And I think any tech, if you get one of these in and you see the letters SE and it's for a screen replacement, and you see that glass over the front of the laptop in front of the screen, yeah, run. Now here I have, you can see where I've somewhat separated it now. I've finally got some give here. I've separated it from a little bit from the glass. So I'm going to continue on here. I'm going to start heating up the sides, and I'm going to continue to work with my tools to poke, to prod. Just a major headache. This is the most problems I've ever had replacing a screen on a laptop. Ever. I would not recommend doing this job to anybody. Obviously, I'm too far into this job now to go back. So here I'm able to kind of pry up. I'm finally to a point now where I can kind of pry, and I think this is where it finally gives way. For the most part, it's going to actually kind of come up and finally give away here, I think. You see, I'm still fighting with this thing, man. So I think, yeah, it's gonna come right on up. I'm tugging, I'm pulling, and yeah, so I've got it up off. At least the sides and the top I have got released. Now my problem is the back side here. That's cemented down there too, so I'm having to heat that up and see if I can get that to come loose. A little bit tougher of an area to get to with my tools since I have those hinge brackets down there. Let's see how this is going to work. Okay, with the back side of this, I've got to get darn right forceful. There's no other way. I am literally putting lots of force, just forcing this off of here. It's bending the screen up. I don't care about the screen anymore anyways. I'm pretty much frustrated at this point. So I am basically using brute force here to finally get this screen off of this plastic. Just a huge nightmare. Again, wouldn't recommend this, or I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. It's just a nightmare of a job. So here we go. Here you see me finally breaking it loose, and oh wow, I just, I can't believe how long that took. Unbelievable. And as you can see here, I'm going to show you the cement that they use to hold this screen in place. I don't understand why. I don't understand why they had to do that. It makes no sense. This stuff isn't just a little bit of glue. This stuff is cement. And there it is around my screen. My screen's bent up, which is the old screen. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to show you here around the plastic, the Gorilla Glass here. It also has it all around the edges, coated with this rubber kind of cement stuff that is just not fun to fight with. Now there's no need to clean any of this stuff off. We're just going to take our new screen and we're going to just lay it right down on top of this. There's absolutely no reason to re-glue it. Everything will be held in place just fine. But thank goodness that part's over. So we just want to kind of make sure the inside of this glass here is nice and cleaned up, because we're not going to be able to clean that once it's put together. We want to be sure also that our screen that we're putting back in is nice and clean, because again, we won't be able to wipe that down or clean it once everything is put back together. Woo! So now we just basically go everything in reverse, and boy is it much faster. So we'll just lay our screen back down where the old screen was, line it up just right on the bezel, on the Gorilla Glass there. Now we're going to work on on some wire management on our antennas. We're going to put our screen bracket back on with the 4 screws we had originally taken off. So, yep, already we're making good progress here. Now I had a spare screen around my shop. This is actually a refurbished screen that came out of an original DV4 that had this foil on the back of it. If you order another screen for this laptop, I see absolutely no reason why you would need to replace the foil. None at all. Okay, we're going to plug our inverter back in here. Plug our screen into our inverter. Get that lined up. Nice and gently just slide it on in. Like so. Then we're going to put our inverter cover back on. We just kind of push it in and we'll put the 4 screws back in. Now we want to be sure that our that little cable that runs to the HP light there is not impeding, it's not pinched. We don't want it to kink. We want to be sure that our data cable is coming out of there okay also. So just pay close attention to that as you're putting the inverter cover back on. Okay, alrighty, we're going to get into routing our antenna wires properly. We don't want those to get in the way of us putting on the back panel, so we be sure those are routed properly. Using a tool, plastic tool or whatever we need to kind of get them back in place where they were. So now we want to carefully plug back in our data cable. Be very gentle plugging in the data cable. And once we have that plugged in, what we're going to want to do now at this point is just test it. We want to test this to make sure everything's plugged in okay before we go any further. The last thing you want to do is put all this thing totally together, turn it on, just to realize that a cable isn't plugged in right and you have to take everything back apart. So we're going to give this thing a quick little power up just to make sure everything's plugged in okay. One last final check. We'll power it up here. Hit our escape button just so we get a boot device screen. And yep, good to go on that. So now we can go ahead and finish putting this back together. We're getting closer. So now we're going to put the camera and microphone back on. And we just be sure that once again the antenna wire there is routed properly. We'll get that camera and microphone mounted once again. And then I'm going to use some tape to kind of secure down some of the wires just to be sure that they don't pop out of place when I'm trying to put the back panel on, and also to hold down some of that foil that's kind of flipping up there. We'll use tape to hold all that down nice and secure, just as an added touch there. Okay, once we've gotten the tape all buttoned up here, we're going to move on to the final step of this long project. We're going to put the back panel back on. So we'll just kind of lay it down on top there. Be very careful of the small ribbon cable. Be sure we're not kicking it, pulling it. And once this is laid down properly, we will just basically run our fingers around the edges, snapping everything back into place. Once that's all done, we can put our 2 screws back in the front of the bezel. We can put our two tabs that we had covering these screws, and then from that point we can go ahead and fire the laptop up. Job done. Wow, what a tough job this was. I would not recommend it. Hey everybody, hit that like button, leave a comment. I have many more computer repair jobs on the way. So until then, everyone, we'll see you next time. Bye now.